AirLand Battle. We've covered infantry and logistics, and now we're going to look at some of the support units in the game. As I've said before, this is essentially a chess game, pretty cleaned up, so you have to know what to send in and send it where. To start with, we'll look at some of these bigger support units. And support, of course, is like artillery, anti-air, mostly that coverage. And that's really about it, is artillery and anti-air. Now you can have certain anti-air that's better than others. You can have certain anti-air that's better against helicopters than airplanes. You can have anti-air that's weaker against some sorts of planes that, for example, have radar. You can also have more effective artillery. Sometimes you'll notice artillery that has 100 rounds, and sometimes you'll notice artillery that has 5 rounds. The 5 rounds are going to do more damage, but they're not going to be as effective if you're just trying to suppress a group of enemies as 100 rounds will be. So let's look at some of these different types of weapons here, just for the Soviet Union. First, you'll notice this symbol up here, which might be shared by a couple others, here. And that just means that this particular support unit is going to fire a hell of a lot of missiles at one time. And when you see some of the videos and you see 100 missiles flying to one area to bombard it, that's these sort of units, not the ones that shoot 6 or 10 or 2 at a time, but these literally shoot 40, 30, 40, 50 times in one sitting. And they usually, at least the ones I've played with, you only get 2 or 3 good shots off before you need to refuel them. So let's pay attention to this for a minute. You can see that it is a tank-like thing, and that the armor specializes in front. You can also tell suppression here, which, as I've said before, affects morale, and if you lower the morale enough of the enemy, they'll retreat, which means they're effectively negated in combat. They don't shoot while they're retreating, and a player cannot control them. You can also see the rate of fire here, 15 fire per minute. You can see this only has 30. So you get 2 shots with this before you need to refuel it, unless you've done some more of the advanced stuff where you have learned how to properly control 5 shots here, 5 shots here, 5 shots here, in which case you still have to wait a minute between each thing. Actually, that might not be true. I'm gonna have to test that. If you don't go through the whole thing, you might be able to shoot it all within a minute. But again, this is a little more on the advanced side, and you can see exactly how many you're gonna have. Also, it's important to pay attention to some of the specializations, of said weapon. So you can see this is napalm, which means it'll start fires mostly in the area, and it's especially good at morale. Core stands for corrected shots, which means if you have a unit in the area that can see exactly what you're shooting at, you can get a better point of accuracy, which is very effective in all artillery methods. Stat stands for stationary, which means the weapon must be, or the vehicle must be stationary in order for the weapon to be fired. I believe almost every type of support class needs to be stationary for them to be working. Let's move on here. Oh, and this is obviously just the nature of the weapon. It's meant for tanks and infantry and just ground units in general, and probably would not have any effect against air units unless they were on the ground. However, just go up one tier and you can see that these are meant for helicopters and planes. This particular weapon here, for example, can do both those. Doesn't have a good accuracy, which is probably why it's dirt cheap, and then can also hit ground units, but not as close. So it's meant more for helicopters and airplanes, but it's nice if you have some infantry sneaking up to destroy it and they can defend itself, which this one wouldn't be able to. And that's how it is for these 3 right here, and you can see if it can hit planes or if it's only for helicopters. You can see these ones are only for ground, which is a very interesting support to have. But it could come in handy if you're trying to defend certain places. You can see this shares the same thing as before with this unit down here, except this is a napalm in this case. And and it's got this AoE here instead, which means that it's going to be more effective against infantry on the ground, and it applies an area effect around it, similar to napalm. And you can see the tiers are always going to be the same. So let's move up to another anti-air, which is different from this because you can see this is more like a machine gun, and these are clearly rockets. Now, units like this are only meant to take out air units, and you can see this is supreme accuracy, and it's got a very far distance to hit, and which is why it's so expensive. But again, it only has four shots, so you could easily fire all those shots in a couple seconds if there's enough air to shoot at, which means units like this need to constantly have logistic units that are carrying fuel to help fuel her up and move forward with them and do that. You can see this is the same thing, but it's not as accurate, it's not as deadly. I think that's the difference here with the R here. It's also cheaper, and it doesn't have as good a range, but it's good for suppression also. Same thing here. And for a couple of these, some of these even have both, where you can see it has a gun that can shoot everything, which is nice for suppression, but it's also got fairly accurate missiles. So this would be a pretty valuable tool to have. However, this is something important to pay attention to when you are setting up your support in your deck. If you have a radar weapon, which RAD stands for, it means that there can be planes that specialize in taking down radar using units, and they're very effective. Those planes, they're usually pretty expensive, but they usually get a kill or two every time they go in. You can turn off the radar weapon if you don't want to get hit. This is just something you'll have to learn how to play with over time, but it's important to keep in mind. Moving on to another type of artillery that's meant for ground units, you can see up here, this symbol up here means it's always going to be meant for ground units, and it's this weapon. Now you can see the range on this is massive, absolutely massive, and will probably cover the entire map. You can see this one's twice as big, which means it will cover the entire map, even if you're playing a 10v10. Now, this one only has a couple rounds, which means you know it's going to be very effective if it gets a hit, whereas the other one has 40 rounds, which means it's more meant for suppression, but can still get kills. Now let's look at some of the characteristics of this weapon that are different than the other ones. The only thing that I notice here is that it says SMK, which stands for smoke. Now, you can fire smoke rounds. They're on the same timetable as everything else, so it interrupts any sort of earlier shot. But if you shoot in the right place, it can effectively shut down the line of sight for tanks and especially for infantry. So you can smoke a town, send your infantry in, and they're going to be a little bit more effective than the other infantry. Or you can smoke a recon unit if you know that a recon unit is seeing your units and you're getting bombed, and it's just a good way to counter there. Finally, you can see this unit up here and this symbol, which basically acts as an artillery, but usually you have to get closer. In this case, this guy has a ton of rounds here, 24 for each one, so he'll probably get off a couple good shots. You can see 7 rounds per minute, so you can do, what, 4 shots before it needs to be refilled. You can see all the characteristics, but you can see these aren't as close. The thing I noticed between this, something like this unit up here, and like this unit, is that these guys are usually more accurate, and I seem to get more kills with them. I don't know if that's how it is for everybody, but that's what I seem to see. You can also see that they are usually more loaded with weapons if they engage in melee combat. So you can see that they have a decent attack against ground, and then again against ground and range of helicopters, whereas these guys don't have it. So that's the main difference. They're meant to be more in the battlefield, while these guys should not be in the battlefield, ever. Although, They usually can take hits from artillery and be fine. But again, you have to pay attention to these statistics down here. Thanks guys for watching, and stay tuned for more episodes of the Tee-Off while we pay attention to more outcomes of, or to more categories.